Alrighty, so this is something I probably should have made a while ago, but it was actually something that was recently spurred on by another individual. So, as some people may recall, I am assuming that there's still quite a few people watching this channel or these videos that have been around for a while. This channel originally started with making Splatoon videos, focusing mostly on competitive Splatoon, and that's what this channel was for many years. Up until just a year and a half ago, somewhere around there, I just completely stopped making Splatoon videos in its entirety and just moved on and have been doing just anything that came to my mind since then. At the time, I didn't really say a whole lot as to why. I think I mentioned in a community post that I was just getting burnt out from the game, which is true. But it wasn't until a few weeks ago when the Let's Player Chugga Conroy had posted on Twitter, Blue Sky, and his YouTube community that he wasn't actually going to be doing a Let's Play of Splatoon 3 and shared some insight as to why he felt, that it didn't hit the same way. And so after seeing that post, I spoke with Chugga as I assisted in his Let's Plays of Splatoon 1 and 2 and was heavily involved in all of them. So I just wanted to pick his brain a little bit on his thoughts and get his opinions on Splatoon 3. And it made me think that maybe I should do the same. Maybe I should sit down and actually talk about my opinion of the game now that, we're only a few weeks away from the Switch 2 and maybe it'll add like mouse support, which I think will be interesting, and maybe I'll give it another shot. But I think what I want to do for this video is I want to just be a little bit real and just sit down and talk about why I completely stopped making Splatoon stuff entirely. So I want to start originally with why I stopped doing it most recently, and that's because at the time I originally made a decision to come back and focus on coaching content, I had a few ideas going in. I had spoken with some people who were going to help bolster the return, essentially. People who were like, oh yeah, I'll help spread awareness of your next videos. And I was like, cool, that would be really great to have some people who would, help spread the word that I was trying to make this type of content. And then at the same time, the site I was using to coach Splatoon, MHFi, decided to make a drastic change to how the site functions. So I made a video specific on that. I'll leave, a link or a thumbnail or one of the corners. I don't remember how it works. A link to that video where I go in detail. Basically, MHFi was a site that I was charging people very small amounts of money for me to coach them, where I would watch videos, like I'd watch the replays back and I would give opinions on it, and I would let people know what I saw in their play that they could improve on, as well as providing feedback on what they could be doing. I also offered for me to sit in on scrims for teams that wanted team-wide coaching, and I did that for a long time. I was one of the first Splatoon coaches on the website, and it was really fun. It was a small amount of money that I was charging, so I wasn't really making a whole lot of money off of it. But MHFi made a decision to make it to where if you wanted to make money off their platform, you had to pay them to make money off the platform, which I said in the original video, and I stand by it now. That's fine. That's whatever. It is entirely their platform. They can make their own rules. They deemed it where you had to pay, I think it was $30 a month to be able to make money off their platform. But at the time, because I was charging so little for my coaching, it was not feasible. I was not making nearly $30 a month to warrant paying them to make money off their platform. And so I and at least one other person I knew decided to just abandon MHFi. So I completely abandoned them because of this decision. I was not making enough off their platform to warrant paying them to stay there. And while they did allow people like me to stick around and offer free coaching, which I'm not against doing, I've definitely helped people for free, I still wanted at least some monetary value to come in for my time. Like, I work a full job. I have all these responsibilities. I wanted at least something to come in from it. And I didn't want to charge a whole lot of money, so I made it very cheap for me to do so. And so I felt like I was making at least something off of it and not charging too much off of it. But their decision to charge $30 a month to make money off their site, it just wasn't feasible. And so my ideas of coaching through that just immediately died. I think this decision was made shortly after I announced that I was going to come back to do coaching content. They just immediately hit me with that change, and it was just all the motivation to do that immediately died. Secondly, I mentioned that some people were going to help spread awareness to videos I was going to make, and I spent a long time recording and editing a video, and I commissioned artwork for a new series of videos I wanted to do. I did all of this stuff. I made the video. I felt really confident in it, and then it just did nothing. It got very few views. The people who told me they were going to help spread the video around just didn't do it, and so the video basically went nowhere, and it got no traction. It didn't do at all what I thought it was going to do, which is disheartening to have all these people that I was talking with saying that they were going to, help bring awareness and help spread the word and let people know, like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about and you should go watch this new thing he's working on. None of it happened. And so the video massively flopped, which I personally have said in the past, I don't really care. A lot of the times I make videos because I want to make something, and that's true to this day. I still make videos because I want to make them, not because I want to become big off the videos. But the reason why that hurt me so much was because of all these people who were going to show this support just not doing it. All these people who were going to help me and help kickstart this whole thing. I had ideas. I had a whole page of ideas for this series, and I just wanted to get a good first video out to get people attached and get people into the idea, and I just didn't get any of the support from the people that I spoke with. So ultimately, the fact that my coaching stuff fell apart and this idea that I had that I thought was going to be really good, and I put all the time and effort and money into it, just immediately falling flat on its face. I just felt like I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to spend more time and effort making the rest of those videos only for them to perform the exact same, for them to just not be met with any sort of, support. And it kind of sucks, to put all that time in and, help work with people, and then nothing comes of it. So that is ultimately why I completely stopped making videos for Splatoon, is I just had a really bad storm of things happening to where it was just not fun to deal with, and the idea of just still going with it was just not in there. I just didn't want to do it. So now let's actually talk about my thoughts on Splatoon 3. Chugga Conroy shared his thoughts, and like I said, I spoke to him, and we discussed things back and forth as to what we did and didn't like. And for me, going into Splatoon 3, I was already still kind of falling out of it. Splatoon 1, I was involved a ton. I played that game almost every single day. And then Splatoon 2, I still played a bunch. But then when my competitive team disbanded, I took that as an opportunity to go play other games that I hadn't played because I was grinding Splatoon. And then I came back to coach and try to play again. But I was caught in a weird limbo where at that point I had been away for so long that people didn't remember. Some people didn't remember me, but some people did. I tried to participate in events that were specific to medium or low level players because I had not played for a year and a half, and I thought, oh well, I'll just go. I got some friends who want to play in this tournament specific for low level players, and they're like, oh, I'll just join them and have some fun. And then the TO is like, oh no, I know who that guy is. He's not allowed. He was a high level player in the past. We don't want him in this event. And so it's like, okay, well, I can't play in that event. I couldn't play in events that were mid-level only because people are like, oh, well, I know that guy. He used to be a high-level player. He's not allowed in this. And so I was basically in a situation where some people knew and would list me as a high rank or high level player, despite that not being true for years. But then I couldn't play with any high level players because they either didn't know who I was or acknowledge the fact that I'd been gone for so long that I wasn't a high level player anymore, which is what I thought. So I couldn't even compete. Even if I wanted to like enter a tournament, there was no winning in like situations. I couldn't do anything low level or mid level because of my past of being a high level player. They wouldn't let me in. But if I wanted to play in something that required like high level players or allowed high level players, the high level players wouldn't play with me. I was caught in a limbo of just not being able to play with anybody. And so I just didn't play. I would come in for an occasional rotation, and then I would, that would be the most of it. I think I played in like a couple of scrims with friends, but I had literally nowhere to actually play. It was solo queue, and that was it. I couldn't play any tournaments. I couldn't play any any of those like practice servers because I could never get into any of them. Or in the case, like at one point I did get into one of them, and then nobody wanted to play with me, and so I got kicked for being inactive, despite the fact that I was inactive because nobody would play with me. So going into Splatoon 3, I already kind of just was burnt out and just tired of all of it. So I went into Splatoon 3 with more of a mindset of just focusing on content and just being casual. And I was kind of disappointed. Yeah, it kind of sucks. The biggest concern I had going into it was the change to how the balance is going to be handled. The seasonal format I felt was straying too much into how other games do it, and other FPS competitive, esports games, they have seasons, and then every like half season and then full season they put out new content or they balance the game. And I felt like for Splatoon, especially with Splatoon 2, like I don't think that would work. I don't think having like 3 months on one balance patch was going to work very well, and was definitely going to get old very quickly, because it's like inevitable that all three Splatoon games have at least one era that is massively unfun, not enjoyable, and then there are big problems that arise from those areas. And the idea that Splatoon 3 wouldn't get a balance update for like 3 months, so if the game was balanced and the state was awful, you were guaranteed to be stuck in that state for 3 months. I was fortunate in that the weapons I loved to play did get treated pretty well. Like Octobrush got really good kits. I felt the maps were very good for it. But it was just a matter of like, I knew right off the bat that this balancing decision to have it focused on seasons was going to immediately bite it in the butt, at least for me. And I felt that is exactly what happened. I felt like era-specific prolonged sections for me where it felt that some weapons and things were so oppressive that it made it not fun to play. That is exactly what happened for me. I did not like certain things being so dominant for so long, and certain strategies and certain like ways that maps could be played. I felt like dealing with it for 3 months was just not it for me. And that was already like tanking my motivation to play. Just the idea that, a lot of these problems I had were likely not going to get fixed for a while. The benefit was that Splatoon 3 still did have other new things. We had the expansions to Salmon Run. We had the new single player that was a bit more like Octo expansion. They did make some adjustments in areas that I felt were good. I do like all of the changes they made to Salmon Run. I do like the new maps. I do like Big Run. I like all of those things. The single player, while it's still kind of bland in certain areas, I felt like the idea that you could approach it and pick the levels that were harder because you want to do something that was harder, I felt that was good. That was probably the extent of my interest in that. The expanded and improved single player was really good. The Salmon Run functions were really good. Table Turf, I ended up not really liking it as much as I was hoping I would. It seemed like way too simplistic, and at least a lot of the bots early on could be easily cheesed, and they took too long to add actual PvP for it. And so any interest I had in like going against other players, by the time it had become a thing, I was already way too bored of Table Turf to actually bother playing against anybody. And so it just became where the idea of playing it just wasn't really all that fun. I knew that I would jump in and some balance problem would make certain things unfun. The maps design in some areas just made certain modes unfun. I remember being super excited for Hammerhead Bridge to come back, and then it was nothing like Hammerhead Bridge. That was a big disappointment for me and some of my friends, that they just used the name essentially, and then it's nothing like the actual original level at all. All of the other past levels, they brought them back, and they're at least some semblance of the original. But Hammerhead Bridge, it's just Hammerhead Bridge in name and nothing else. There's no resemblance at all. And it just suffered from the same stuff for me, where my whole experience in Splatoon 3 was solo queue. I didn't have people who wanted to play with me in groups. The Splatfests, while they were improved with tricolor turf, I, again, was mostly playing it by myself. I didn't really have people who wanted to actively play these with me anymore. And the idea of sitting down after 9-10 hours of work and just spending another couple hours recording Splatoon footage, that just it just wasn't really fun to think about. And all of it just culminated in, like, I just immediately thought, like, there is no fun I'm having in this. Solo queue was not fun. Single player going into turf war by myself was not fun. The single player and salmon run were at least fun. I would still come back to play salmon run if there was like a big run event. I would come back and play that. But the normal multiplayer, it just really bored me so quickly. And it kind of sucks to say, because I had spent so much time and so many years playing this series, that to say that, yeah, the multiplayer bored me. The newest additions to Splatoon 3 with the Surge and the Squid Roll, I don't feel that they added enough for it to feel like it's a brand new game, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, they're cool additions, but, like, did it really need to come out like this? Like, for me personally, I don't feel like there was enough new things at the start of the game to warrant it being Splatoon 3. There were some new weapons, of course, these new abilities and stuff like that. That's cool. But for me, I didn't feel like that was enough to justify a whole new game on the same platform. And it makes me kind of wonder if the idea for it to be like a Switch Pro title and then got shafted when the decision was made internally to make the Switch 2. So it just kind of seems like Splatoon 3 was not rushed, but definitely kind of pushed out to have another game out there. And for me, it just felt like there wasn't enough to actually warrant it being out there. The additions outside of the core multiplayer were fun. Even the DLC they added is fun. I did Octobrush speedruns for the DLC, so it was at least more interesting than the rest of the stuff. But for me, there was just so many problems with balance design being so bad, and then being stuck with it for months on end, that it just wasn't enjoyable to play. And then I didn't have anybody to play with. Even when I wanted to, like, for fun, maybe join a tournament or do a scrim, just to, actually do something, there was just nobody to play with. And so you could argue that a lot of this is because, like, it's a me problem, it's a skill issue, it's this, that, and the other. And that's fine. I'll take that sort of criticism, that it's a skill issue that I didn't like balance changes. That's fine. But as somebody who, like, went from playing competitive to now admittedly being just a casual player, I think it's totally valid for me to be like, okay, the balance isn't what I want it to be. I'm not having fun. I'm done. And I think that is entirely valid. There was an avalanche of problems for me where the whole point of me focusing on coaching content was for a way for me to still be involved in the game without having to grind the game. And it was also helping build up for other things, like other ideas and projects I had in my mind, where I could spend this time, instead of, clocking hours trying to play solo queue to get footage, now I can spend, an hour doing coaching stuff, and then get footage for coaching, and then put YouTube videos out for coaching stuff. And then that would be, always valuable. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it fell apart because of Metafy's decisions. And then the other content I wanted to do didn't get the backing that I was told I'd get. And it was just an avalanche of just things that just didn't make it fun. So yeah, now it's been almost about a year since I've even touched Splatoon 3. I've completely uninstalled it from my Switch. I haven't touched it in a while, and I mean, I think I last touched it for the final Splatfest. I think I launched just to pick a side, and that was it. I didn't even play, and it really does suck, the sort of fallout of interest in the series that I've been involved in for so long and was competing in for so long. And I have major props to the people that are still doing it and still sticking around and participating, competing, and making content. That requires a level of dedication and willpower that I, at this point, just don't have anymore. And the game itself just hasn't retained its interest in me, and I just don't really think I will care. I was really hoping that with the Switch 2 Direct that they did not show a Splatoon 4. Not because I want the series to fail or anything like that, but because I want them to genuinely take time. I want them to have another game where there is some sort of drastic departure and major changes and major new additions to warrant a Splatoon 4. And so the fact that they didn't show a Splatoon 4, for me, I think that's a good thing. I do want the devs to take their time and come up with some brand new ideas and innovate and do all this stuff. And maybe with Splatoon 4, if they take that time and they add some new stuff, maybe then I'll come back and play it. But I don't see, in the foreseeable future, I do not see myself doing Splatoon content anymore, just because I don't think there really is any interest in me to do it anymore. And the stuff that I did do, the content that I did provide, is now available from other people. The big benefit for the game having taken off now with the Switch and people actually buying the game is there is a lot more interest and there's a lot more people out there making content. And that is exactly what we want. We want people to actually be filling this niche and doing all this stuff. And when I did it back in Splatoon 1, I was just one of, a couple dozen, maybe less than 50 people doing it and making this content. Even lower numbers for people making competitive content. Now there's tons of it. There's tons of people doing it. And so I would say that like the stuff that I made isn't necessarily needed anymore. Or if it is needed, somebody else is doing it elsewhere. And that's fine. And I totally respect people for doing that. And it's totally cool. I would much rather the ideas and the stuff that I did carry on through somebody else than for me to put no effort and no interest in just to keep making videos, because I just certainly don't want to do it anymore. I have nothing but respect for the team that makes the games and the people who are still playing it and competing. It is kind of wild, though, to think that there are some people competing in competitive Splatoon who were too young to be on the internet to watch me compete when I did. So that's kind of wild to think about. So that's a long-winded rant. I haven't really I've tried to not rant in my videos for a couple of years, but I felt like this one I just kind of had to for a while, and just to get my thoughts out there. Basically, if you're skipping to the end to get a TLDR, basically, I don't want to make videos anymore because I've lost interest in the game. I've got burnt out. The ideas I had all fell through, and I just felt like now the niche that I filled is filled by someone else, and it's probably no longer niche anymore. And so for me, I would much rather focus my time and energy into making videos that interest me and the things I want to make, rather than just forcing myself to keep making videos. And the game itself, I feel like certain decisions with balancing and the seasonal rotation stuff, I think just, soured me on a lot of it. And that's basically it. I just lost interest because certain aspects I don't feel like were touched on quickly enough, and I just didn't keep my attention. But yeah, that is it. So I want to thank my YouTube members for the support. If you did enjoy this video, I'd appreciate a like, a comment, and then if you want to see anything else that I have going forward, you can feel free to subscribe. I've got all sorts of random things in mind There's just, random stuff that I'm going to be putting out. So if you're interested in seeing other stuff, if you are coming in and seeing me talk about this and you're a Splatoon 3 only player, the content I made in the past, all my Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 1 videos, are still up on this channel. I have no intention on deleting any of it. Mostly because for some people, I have heard that it holds some sort of historic value, so I have no intention on deleting my old content. So if people want to go see some of the old stuff I made, you can feel free to go back. I have playlists now that show my Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 content. So if you want to go see specific stuff that I made in the past, feel free to go back there and watch and see old me and old history and nonsense like that. But yeah, so thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.